Now, this is going to be interesting how I try to explain this. Because you can clearly tell not a lot of people know what happens in their own country. And that's understandable. America is a nation of 331 million people. There's no way anybody could possibly know all the people in this country. Well, I don't know everyone. But I sort of kind of know people who know everyone. So I take all of that data in and I aggregate it and I spit it out. So let me explain something that's kind of odd that America does that nobody else really does. And you can't really say that the way they do things would work in America either. I'm going to explain a lot, so listen up. Gun violence. Everybody is trying to say the reason you have gun violence is because of X or Y or Z. And that's true, but it's also not true. It's not the full story or picture of why you have a lot of gun violence. There's a multitude of factors that go into it. Believe you me. We never really assess the factor that, well, somebody can be sane one moment and just snap the next moment. You know, you can tell a lot of this gun violence, recent gun violence, has to do with not mental health, but mental illness. Let me give you an example. The dude, he's in the CTA station, and there's a dude that pushes him down. Okay, this dude works for the CTA. Now he gets back up. The dude that got pushed down, he gets back up. He's got a gun. You know, he's got a gun. He sees the dude running down the steps that just pushed him down. Now there's other people all over the steps. The CTA worker takes out his gun and just starts firing. Pop, 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 pop. No regard for any of the other people. Trying to hit someone running down steps. That's not normal, okay? If somebody pushes me down, I'm going to try to run after them, even if I got a gun. And at least I'm going to be close enough to take one shot if I'm going to shoot. So a lot of the issue with gun violence has to do with mental illness. And a lot of people are not factoring that into this equation. I know a lot of motherfuckers buy guns because they think an impending civil war is about to happen. And that might be true. But do you really want, while you're out there shooting people because you can't agree politically, other mofos to just be shooting anybody and everybody because they're cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs? If they see you out there shooting, they're not going to be able to distinguish. They're just going to go start shooting anybody. I'm just saying. So I say, with gun violence, you have to be reasonable. You have to say that some people all across this country, I kid you not, all across this country, there are people outside right now completely batshit crazy, talking to themselves, fighting, punching, kicking things, throwing things, screaming and hollering. Babylon drove them insane. But They don't do a good job of keeping track of all of these individuals. So some of them get a hold of weapons, guns. And that's who you see doing mass shootings. People who have gone completely cocoa for bananas. There's nothing left. Now, the NRA, the National Rifle Association, they have been unwilling to acknowledge that there are a lot of people in this country with mental illness who also operate and carry firearms. They're not normal. They shouldn't have it. So common sense would tell you, look, we gotta have some restriction. Because there's a lot of mofos that the NRA don't want to have weapons too. But because they're so concerned about all of their weapons being taken away, which is really crazy. Americans, let's be honest. You know good and well there's no way in the world any government can take your guns away from you. Everyone in the country has at least 4 guns to their name. Legally or illegally, I don't know, don't care, but it's true. All I'm saying is make it a little bit more difficult for the batshit crazy people. The really crazy people, because all of us are crazy, but the really batshit crazy people that go into schools and shoot little kids, make it difficult for them to get a gun. Please and thank you. I don't think that's too extreme. Now, you can't even buy a Coors Light beer if you're 18. You can't buy a Coors Light beer if you're 19. You can't buy a Coors Light beer if you're 20. Think about that. One Coors Light beer is not going to get you drunk at 18, 19, or 20. You'd have to drink about 7 or 8 of those fuckers. Then you'd have a nice hangover. So one Coors Light beer is not going to get you drunk. But it will cause any liquor establishment who sells it to you, knowing that you're underage, it'll cost them their liquor license. They won't be able to sell any liquor in your state ever again because they'll have their license revoked. Now, if one Coors Light beer is the most dangerous thing to an 18-year-old and not an AR-15, what kind of batshit crazy country do you think you live in? See, this is the kind of bullshit that even these bullshitters don't think about. I don't think it's dawned on them that one Coors Light can have severe ramifications for the person who sells it to you and the purchaser. Now, people have said, oh, well, everyone has fake IDs nowadays. Well, people who sell those type of things get busted. And everyone does it. Certain people do. You have underage drinking parties. And what generally happens at those parties? Criminality. And if they're found out about, law enforcement breaks them up. So you have reasonable restrictions for alcohol for 18-year-olds in your society. You say if you're 18, 19, or 20, you can't drink. You have to be 21 to drink responsibly in America. Even though most people start drinking at 13. I'm trying to remember when I started drinking. Anyway, You have reasonable restrictions. This cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, your congresswoman in Colorado, Lauren Boebert, she said, well, you don't take away pilots if one of them crashes. You don't stop flying in planes. Look, you do investigations, for sure. You find out what went wrong, whether it was a failure of the engine, whether it was a mechanical issue, whether it was the pilot's fault. And if you're talking about terrorism, after 9/11, we put a whole bunch of restrictions in place. Liquid restrictions after a shoe bomb. You gotta remove your shoes and all metal in your pocket. You gotta remove your computers from your backpack. You gotta go through a metal detector. Get wadded down, patted down. So what the fuck is this son of a bitch talking about? We've got a whole bunch of restrictions if you want to own a car. You have to have title and registration, insurance. And you have to pay in case you cause damage. Even if you never get into an accident. The law states that you have to purchase car insurance. Say I've been driving for 70 years. I've never hit a damn thing. For 70 years, I have to purchase car insurance. It's the law. If you're driving uninsured, it's technically against the law. So we have restrictions on dangerous and deadly machinery and products in our society. I can't smoke a joint until I'm 21. You mean I can't smoke Kush at 18? I cannot do any marijuana until I'm 21 in America. Now they say you can join the army at 18. And you can go off to university at 18. But in the army, in order for you to have a weapon, you have to be a GI. You have to be a product of the government. The government will train you how to utilize it for months and months. Now, if you're a regular civilian, does the government train you for months and months how to use a weapon? No. Absolutely not. You don't even have to go and watch an hour-long training video. There's no requirement that you have to practice at the range for so many hours. There's no requirements that you have to learn anything about safety, safe storage of a weapon, how to clean a weapon properly. None of that shit. Now I think that's kind of nut shit. Especially as it's a very deadly tool. Very deadly. In culinary school, you use different knives. And they teach you how to chop certain vegetables with a knife. But they teach you a certain way to do it. Because they tell you a knife is very dangerous. Now in culinary school, you learn that a knife is dangerous. In America, you can go and purchase an AR-15 as an 18-year-old. And you learn nothing about, well, this is a very deadly weapon. What do you need this much ammunition for? 64 rounds? For an AR-15? know whole platoons that don't have that much munition. So it's a little crazy now in Babylon. They've gone completely cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. I'm like, okay, so be it. But I think that's going to come back to bite everyone in their ass. And by everyone, I mean everyone in their ass. I don't see how that can ever have a good and happy ending. I'm just saying. So, gun violence is different too, depending on locality. Conservatives, please get it out of your mind that Chicago is so violent. We know every time you say Chicago, it's racist. There are a handful of areas in Chicago where gun violence occurs. This is predominantly a gang member shooting at another gang member. Now, should this violence occur? No, it shouldn't. But that's like saying, should crime occur? No, it shouldn't. But it kind of happens. We're not talking about criminals shooting at other criminals. We're talking about mentally ill individuals having no requirement before they purchase weapons of war in your country with no restrictions. You're trying to set up an apples to apples comparison and think that I'm stupid enough not to know it's an apples to orange comparison. We've always had mobsters in this country. And you go after criminals with weapons. So whose fault is it that the people responsible haven't gone after criminals with guns? That has nothing to do with restrictions. Basic common restrictions on any old mofo who walks into a gun store. Because as it stands right now in Texas, you can be batshit crazy. Go to a gun store and buy an AR-15 and just start shooting anyone. It's completely legal in Texas. We just saw it in Uvalde. You think that's the last time you're going to see it? Oh, please. We've seen it in a subway train station in New York. We've seen it at a grocery store in Buffalo. We've seen it at Oakley in a high school in Michigan. We've seen it at Sandy Hook in Columbine. We've seen it in El Paso at a grocery store. We've seen it in many synagogues. We saw it at a church, a Taiwanese church. I don't know. I mean, generally speaking, when you're thinking about whether something is a fluke, generally speaking, it seldom happens. But when something happens over and over and over again, you gotta kind of start to think that, well, this is not a fluke. This is kind of the norm. We've had 146 days into this year. And I believe we're at 22 mass shootings. Now it's Memorial Day weekend. People get drunk, have a good time with their family, shoot off some fireworks, and then they go and take a nap and go to sleep. Regular Americans do this. Crazy Americans go outside during Memorial Day and shoot each other. So how many mass shootings do you want to predict are going to happen this weekend? Who wants to guess the number? I guarantee you It's going to be more than one. Definitely going to be more than one. Probably more than two. Oh, hell, it's probably going to be about 50. In America, don't change the definition of what a mass shooting is. Bitch, please, don't change the definition. A mass shooting is 2 or more murders at the scene. Because I learned in school 2 or more is plural. So they'll say, oh, one person got shot in a domestic dispute. No. If they shot more than one person, it's a mass shooting, regardless of whether the person survives or not. It's another mass shooting. If a mofo shoots up his whole entire family this weekend, it's a mass shooting. If a mofo runs into a place and starts shooting, doesn't hit anyone, well, it's a mass shooting because technically masses of people were present. So, how many of those kind of things do you think are going to happen this weekend? Now, if 0 occurred for Memorial Day weekend, I'm going to throw you motherfuckers the biggest ticker tape parade ever. I'm going to say, what happened? No mass shootings this Memorial Day weekend? And believe you me, I'm not going to take your word for it. I'm going to go to the ultimate source, the guru, the knower of all things. I'm going to Google that shit. And Google is going to give me a number. Who wants to predict it's going to be 0? Absolutely no American will say it will be 0. So we've got to stop pretending that there's not a huge issue. When more Americans die of mass shooting than car accidents, you know it's a huge problem. Because Americans can't drive. And if now more people are dying of being shot than being out on the roads, which machine do you think is more dangerous? The car or the gun? You know you have speed limits on the roads, whether people follow them or not. That's a restriction. You have stop signs and stoplights on the roads. That's a restriction. You have rules on the road. What's the rules to carry a weapon? Are there any rules you have to maintain or keep? Nobody has ever asked himself this in society. Should there be rules to owning a weapon, like a gun? Should you have to store it somewhere safe, where your kids just can't pick it up and shoot themselves in the brains? Oops, I'm sorry. That actually happened. And it was an accident. Really, it was. The girl was on the back of a pickup truck. And her father had gone into the house, but he left the gun on the back of the pickup truck. And he comes outside and sees the girl playing with the gun. And she shot herself. You know that could have been completely avoidable if he had known about rules to gun ownership. You don't leave a gun lying around by a child. So have you thought, what should there be rules to ownership? You can own something, but you should know how to properly own it. In my opinion. Whether I take it away from you or not. Is your family even safe with you owning it? You know, a lot of mofos will get intoxicated. And they'll get angry and commit domestic violence. And they'll snap and shoot their wife or their girlfriend. Happens all the time in this country. Now, if there were classes that you had to take, anger management classes, in order to continue to own your weapon, that type of violence would probably drop 10, 20, 30-fold. Why not at least try it? We don't know if it doesn't work or not, because mofos won't try it. You can't say something doesn't work if you don't want to try it. That's ludicrous. I mean, you have parenting classes. You tell a mother that she needs to go and take parenting classes in order to become a good parent to her child that she's had in her belly for 9 months. She must have been good for 9 months. She delivered a healthy baby. But yet still, you have parenting classes. No classes that you need to take to own a gun? None? Really? I can just watch some YouTube videos, and that should be sufficient. You fucking idiots. And then you talk about gun violence like you don't know why. Now, there's a lot of mofos that just have beef. And their first resort to solving all their beef is shooting you. I never really understood this. I'm like, Americans, do you not fight physically with your punches anymore? Your feet and your knuckles? Are you a bunch of cowards and bitches that you don't know how to throw a punch? Seems like nowadays everyone wants to shoot each other. There used to be more fisticuffs. For the record, I have a good right and left hook. And my uppercut is top notch. But yeah, have you noticed that? Everything has to be resolved with a gun. Especially a lot of young mofos. Young people, the first thing they pull out, if somebody says something, if somebody talks to them sideways, as they say out on the street, you spoke to me sideways, so I'm going to shoot you now. I say, wait a minute. Motherfucker, please. I spoke to you sideways, so you want to shoot me? What about come and kick my ass? You're not really all that tough if you have to solve all your problems with a gun. I'm just saying. And then we have to talk about funding distributions. Mental illness and mental health is not really taken all that serious. Now there's talk of it. But for years, America, you've known for decades that you have a severe mental health crisis in this nation. I say this, people were crazy before the pandemic. Before COVID, people were crazy. Doing all kinds of crazy shit. But it wasn't really as crazy as it is now. I'm telling you, even people who have studied this shit, they say it's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs now. There was always shootings, even in Chicago and Los Angeles. You had mobsters shooting it out. But even the old mobsters are saying, look here, Purple. It was never this crazy. We had rules. We didn't just come to a certain area and just start shooting everybody. We had rules. Nowadays, mofos have no rules. It's just anarchy out there. Even the OGs tell me this. The original gangsters, they say, you youngins, you've lost your fucking mind. This is what they say. Carjackings through the roof. Have you heard what they're doing? They'll hit your vehicle, lightly tap it. You'll get out your vehicle. You'll say, you just hit me. They'll pull a gun, shoot you, and take your vehicle. You think I'm lying? This is what's occurring. You have kooks running around in Babylon. And Babylon now wants to acknowledge that they've driven their inhabitants completely insane. Hello, I said this like a long time ago. And now people want to say it's COVID restrictions. Fuck what you say. People are isolated in other places. I'm a model citizen. And I've been isolated forever. So fuck this isolation theory. Fuck the video games. I play video games. Millions of people play video games. They don't go outside and start shooting people. No. This is because you have no mental illness treatment. No mental health facilities anywhere. You know, I say you have to provide multi-purpose things in your society. We're going to talk about this. This is a big conversation. So I'm breaking it down now. We don't have a lot of mental health facilities. We do have a lot of churches. The churches, the synagogues, and the mosques. I know you want everyone to join your cult. Because the only way to get to the good place is to join your cult. Well, there are people that are so crazy, they don't care about the good or the bad place. They do need some mental health. And you have a facility where you can offer mental health. That building is always there. It's only being utilized usually one day of the week. For the Muslims, it's Friday. For the Jewish people, it's Saturday. And for the Christians, it's Sunday. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, none of those buildings are really being utilized. Why don't you focus on mental health and mental illness? I think if you really assisted someone suffering from mental health and mental illness, without forcing them, they might be more likely to join your cult. Shocking. But you would actually have to do something, which I don't think you're capable of doing. So I say you repurpose those buildings as homeless shelters, and you house unhoused people inside the religious temples. I don't think Allah needs all those mosques. I've never seen Allah in any of those mosques. Christ doesn't need all those churches. Christ is resting in heaven, I think, the big house. So those churches here, you can give them to the unhoused. The synagogue, Moses. I think Moses would be on board with you opening up your synagogues to the unhoused. The Buddhist temples. Buddha would definitely be on board with you housing the unhoused. At least until there's a political solution, you faith leaders can offer a faith-based solution. Because a lot of people suffering from mental illness are doing so because of their conditions. So why don't you provide some roof and shelter? The fact that you don't want to do reasonable things in a reasonable way only shows unreasonable and crazy people that nothing will change so they can keep being crazy and unreasonable in the society. How many school shootings have we had since Columbine? Now go Google how many school shootings in America resulting in the death of students have happened since Columbine. Don't talk about Sandy Hook. Since Columbine. And you've done absolutely the same thing. We're sending our thoughts and our prayers. Since Columbine, they've been sending their thoughts and their prayers. You think about this. Columbine happened in the 1990s. The only video game Ted Cruz was Oregon Trails and Pac-Man, Mrs. and Mr. Pac-Man. Now you're telling me the kids that grew up on Pac-Man, those kids are mass shooters because they played Pac-Man in Oregon Trail. Settlers of Catan and Monopoly were huge during Columbine. People used to play more board games than video games. Single mothers. Okay, I told you they always have to be misogynistic. Single mothers are creating gun violence in America. You women who are staying single, raising those boys, you're the culprit. Well, you don't want to have them have the right to an abortion. I guess they're just not supposed to ever have sex. Because you don't know that you're going to have to leave your crazy ex now that you have a child. So you don't want them to have an abortion, and you want them to stay with their abuser for life because they had a child. Oh yeah, don't worry, they want to ban divorce too. Women, you should not have the right to divorce your husbands. These people are nuts. They're completely batshit crazy. And we have to stop it. Now, stopping them is going to look a lot of different ways to a lot of different groups. But stopping them is something we've definitely got to do. Because the alternative is probably 1930 in this country again. Or maybe something in the 1800s. You never know how far back they want to go. You can't even say the word gay in Florida. So maybe they're going to try to act like nothing exists outside of what they want to completely exist. You never know. They're cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. They got guns too. And then you got the lunatics like Uvalde, the individual that shot his grandmother in the face and said, I'm going to go shoot up some small kids now. They got guns too. You can see why gun violence might be a thing in a country like that. I don't know what I'm missing. I can clearly see why gun violence might be a sort of kind of big deal in a country with a bunch of lunatics. And they're like, it's patriotic to own a weapon. Okay. It should be patriotic to know how to use a weapon. to know how to responsibly own the weapon. Shouldn't just be patriotic because you have it. That's stupid. Whoever heard of that? Just because I have something, it makes me the thing. Bitch, please. That's not logical. You can have something and not know how to use it. It doesn't make you a great owner if you have something and you don't know how to properly use it. Or you're incapable of properly using it. Let's just say that. Let's go there. Do you think that shooter was ever capable of really owning a weapon correctly based off of his actions? I don't think so. Do you think the shooter who drove to Buffalo was capable of owning a weapon and utilizing it properly ever? I don't think so. Do you think Kyle Rittenhouse, aka Rittenhouse, knows how to properly use a weapon or should ever have a weapon? I don't think so. Can we go there? Some people should probably never be allowed to own a weapon. Oh, if there's a list, I'm putting a lot of names on it. Bobby over there talks to himself. He's throwing things at the little girls in the room. How old is Bobby? Oh, Bobby is 43 years old. But Bobby thinks that he's 7 and that he's in pre-K. Okay, should Bobby have a gun? An AR-15? No, I'm going to put Bobby on the list. He should not have an AR-15. I keep telling you, I've worked and assisted some things that you don't even want to think about. So I would have a long list of names. Some of your names wouldn't even make it. You conservatives, I don't even think I would put some of your names in the top 10,000 of people who I know should not have a weapon. So some of you motherfuckers who are worried, you're cool. Because my list includes people who you don't even think should own a weapon, let alone an AR-15. The kid that's in the classroom with the pencil, he's in middle school, running around trying to stab everyone with his pencil. I show up, and he sharpens his pencil all day long, and waits till my back is turned and stabs me in the back. You think I should allow that fucker to have a gun? Now he's 18. He's completely kooky. You really want that fucker to have an AR-15? I'm telling you, there's people who I would put on the list that you would agree with that are on that list. Best believe you me, I know what you don't. So you gotta have reasonable standards in anything if you want success. Now, if you want all kind of nut and fuck shit, you don't have any restrictions or standards. You let people like Charles Manson own an AR-15. You let people like Al Capone own AR-15. I don't know. You tell me. I don't think I'm missing anything. Timothy Leary, when he was tripping out on LSD, can you imagine if that mofo had walked outside with guns and went to some, who knows, I won't say, but can you imagine him tripping out on LSD with guns I'm telling you. You gotta think about all the possibilities in the universe when you make a decision. Yeah, man. Look, it's no surprise that gun violence is a thing in America. It always has been. This island has always been violent. But I'm telling you, violence with guns has skyrocketed. Mofos can't resolve any situation without a gun. Nothing. Oh, you talked and looked at me sideways. Next thing I know, boom, 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 boom. I said, who the fuck is this idiot? They said, oh, that's the new kid. I said, who gave the new kid a gun? They said, oh, nowadays any mofo can get a gun. Every mofo has got 3 or 4. I said, this kid almost shot and killed me. They said, we know. It's crazy. I said, you mofos are crazy to accept this shit. They said, we know. We just can't do anything about it.